Hello everybody and welcome to my very first booktube video. For me, I wanted to create a booktube account because I love talking about books, I love reading books, and I just want to be able to share my passion with more people and connect with people that also have the same passion. So for me, this very first video is going to be my top 10 favorite books in 10 different genres, because I thought how better to get to know a reader than to know their favorite books. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you go easy on my first video and maybe find a book that you can add to your TBR. For fiction, I'm going to be talking about Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Beartown is just stupid amazing. I love this book with all of my heart, and it centers around a fictional town called Beartown, where hockey is everything. It's what the people want to be known for. It's what they want to be the best at. And it is really the point at which all of our characters revolve around. And Beartown has amazing characters. Beartown is written so well, and it just pulls you in, and you can't help but love all of these different characters. There's a certain event that takes place within Beartown that kind of pits all of the characters against each other and really highlights the sometimes brutal nature of just being a human. Beartown had me feeling so many things. I was rooting for so many different characters that I cannot help but recommend this to anyone looking for a great fiction read. And yeah, it's about hockey, but you won't even know it. That's how amazing it is. Next, we have science fiction. And for science fiction, I'm going to be talking about Recursion by Blake Crouch. This book is wild. It is about a New York City cop that is investigating this strange phenomenon known as false memory syndrome. This is where people just suddenly have memories of a life they've never lived. I am not near smart enough to talk about everything that happens in this book, but it is a wild ride. You can definitely expect time jumping, alternate reality hijinks, and just an insane, wild plot that had me on the edge of my seat. And it's just a book I can't help but throw at people. If they're looking for a science fiction book that's small, definitely packs a punch, and will leave you thinking about it long after you flip that final page. Next, I'm going to be talking about romantasy. Romantasy is kind of a newer genre that centers around romance and fantasy and kind of mushes them together. And I think sometimes I have a hard time finding a book that just does both of those things really well together. And while this may not be considered romantasy, I'm going to count it. And that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This could, I guess, also be cottagecore, but I don't know what cottagecore is. So I'm sticking to romantasy with this one. You'll just have to deal with it. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is definitely a slower read. It is light on the fantasy, light on the romance, but it is about an alternate world where fairies exist in plain sight. So Emily Wilde is a professor that studies the Fae and travels around the world just studying their lives, studying the way they interact with our world. And I found that really entertaining. It definitely has a more studious approach to it, where it is more just studying these creatures, not really waging war and battles, but it's still very, very entertaining. I devoured this first book. The second book is just as good. I believe we're getting the third book this year. But for romantasy, I feel like Emily Wilde just really did it for me and really delivered a book that I still think about to this day. Fantasy is one of my favorite genres. So to think of even a book that could possibly be my favorite in this genre was really, really hard. But in the end, I had to give it to The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I just can't get enough of John Gwynne as a writer. And this book specifically is a Norse Viking-inspired fantasy where all the old gods waged war against one another and killed each other off. In the remains of that big battle, the gods' skeletons remained in this world, and the humans have built cities beneath those giant skeletons, within those giant skeletons, and just created such a unique world for some fantastic characters to adventure and explore, and I just can't get enough of it. Some of the humans in this world were also cursed or blessed with the blood of the gods, giving them heightened supernatural abilities. One of the main characters, Orca, is one of my favorite characters I've ever read. She's a mother that's going after her kidnapped son, and she will do anything to get him back. And I mean anything. She is a badass, she is awesome, and I just love this series. Book 2 was just as fantastic. Book 3 is coming out in October, and I can't get enough of it. If you're looking for a classic fantasy adventure with just such a unique twist, please read this book. For historical fiction, one of my favorite books is The Snow Child by Eowyn Evie. It is fantastic. And I know I should stop saying that because all these books are fantastic to me. That's why they're like my top 10. But The Snow Child is fantastic. It takes place within the 1920s in the Alaskan frontier, where our main characters are an estranged married couple that are slowly falling out of love. And as their hardships continue to grow and grow, they continue to drift apart. Yet, one night, in just some magical levity, they go outside in the fresh snow and they create a snow child. When they wake up in the morning, that child is no longer there. Instead, they see a little girl running through the woods. Thus, the story picks up from there, and we explore what it's like to be a parent, what it's like to lose, what it's like to just love. And this story just goes through so many emotions, and it feels like a fairy tale set in our world and done just so well. This is definitely one of my favorite reads to pick up in the wintertime because it definitely has that cozy vibe, and it's just fantastic. For magical realism, I will be talking about Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a 4-book series now, I believe, and every single addition to the series I adore. This is split into about 4 different stories about characters traveling back in time. The main premise of the series is that if you go to a certain cafe in Tokyo, sit at a certain seat, and drink a cup of coffee, you can travel back in town. Thus, our characters are meeting loved ones that passed away, loved ones that maybe don't remember them, or situations they wish they could change. This series just always explores really hard and emotional topics that I think just really make you feel alive. Remember why you love people, why you are happy to be alive. It's just such a joyful book. Yes, it can be sad, but I think at the end it really just has an uplifting feeling to it. And every time I read this book, anytime I read any book in this series, I just feel amazing. I just feel ready to conquer the world, and it just is such a fantastic series. For urban fantasy, I have to talk about one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This book orbits around multiple crime families set in a fictional Asian country. In this world, Jade is a gem that bestows upon certain people supernatural abilities. Thus, these mob families basically run Jade and control it and use it to have cataclysmic turf wars between one another. The characters in this book are so fleshed out and so amazing. You're reading from both sides of these mob families and how they're at each other's throats, how they're trying to control their cities, and it is just a wild ride. I was always on the edge of my seat. I was always cheering on these characters, and Jade City is just unlike anything I've ever read. And I will always try to push this on people. If you're looking for an action-packed, character-driven story, Jade City is the one. Just trust me, do it. Just read Jade City. For coming of age, I chose Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. This is a weird and odd novel. Before you read this, I definitely recommend looking up trigger warnings just so you know what you're getting yourself into, because the main character is a girl who feels at odds with Japanese society. She believes she might be an alien, she might be a witch, she just knows that she doesn't feel normal. Thus, we follow her from being a girl into becoming a woman, and how those odds just never evened out, and she goes to some pretty extreme lengths to find people that she believes she fits in with. This book explores a lot of in-depth topics like misogyny, cannibalism, murder, and just wild, wild things. It's a short book, but it really just delivers a unique tale. When I finished it, wasn't sure how I felt about it, and I still am a little confused at times, but all I know is that I still think about this book. I still think about what a wild journey it was, and to me, that's worth something, right? For children's literature, I wanted to talk about The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This is a collector's edition. It has all 3 books in the trilogy, but specifically, I wanted to talk about The Golden Compass. This is set in an alternate reality where our souls exist outside of our bodies as daemons or demons that take form of animals. And there's also talking polar bears, there's witches, there's religious organizations on the prowl. And The Golden Compass is just such a wild adventure. I remember when I was younger, this was very controversial because people believe that it is very anti-Christianity, and maybe it is. I'm not sure. But to me, The Golden Compass was always a story of self-discovery and a journey of becoming yourself, becoming an adult, becoming who you're meant to be. And I really, really enjoyed the daemons in this book and how they are just a reflection of the characters' souls and how they're used as this literary device so that you can see how our characters are feeling by reading how the daemons react to certain situations. The Golden Compass just has such a warm place in my heart, and I always go back to it if people are looking for just a classic adventure of a heroine growing up and defying the odds. When it comes to young adult, I always suggest Maggie Stiefvater. I love her writing, I love how mature she makes her characters, and her stories are always just so unique. So for young adult, I'm going to be talking about The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This series is about 5 teens that are on the hunt for an old Welsh king. They're going to hunt down ley lines, consult with ghosts, and research old myths to find this legendary king that is supposed to give whoever finds him one wish. This book is set in Virginia, but the way Stiefvater writes this series, you feel like it's just another land entirely. It feels so mystical, it feels so magical, it feels so menacing that you just can't help but feel bewitched. And this story is so unique as it travels from book to book to book. But even just Raven Boys as the start of a series, it is wild, it is fantastic, it is super unique, and I always suggest it for people that are looking for a more mature young adult book and series. So that's it. That is my first ever BookTube video. I would love it if you guys would let me know in the comments some of your favorite books, because I'm always looking for new things to read. And if any of these books sounded interesting to you, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to freak out with you. I would love to convince you further. I would love to just maybe send you a copy. I probably won't do that. But I would love to connect with you guys. And I just hope you guys enjoyed this video. And until next time, bye.